Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Although I know you've been here, for those of you who have traveled, welcome again from me. My name is Yaya Fanusie, Director of Policy for Anti-Money Laundering and Cyber Risk at the Crypto Council for Innovation. And by way of background, before I give a couple of maybe framing thoughts, in my own background, I worked from 2005 to 2012 in the U.S. intelligence community, where I was an analyst, mostly focused on counterterrorism. I was a counterterrorism analyst for most of that time. I did not deal with crypto back then. Sometimes people think I was doing crypto, but I only started looking at crypto when I left government. And so what I'd like to frame for just a few minutes is really the national security lens that I think may resonate with many of you. Because the national security policy issues around digital assets or crypto, or I'll say digital assets writ large, are multidimensional. And the posture to address them has to be multidimensional. And I'll explain kind of why I'm seeing that just from my own observation over the years. And even before I came to CCI, what I was doing, I was a researcher looking at national security risks and financial technologies. So I'll separate them sort of three dimensions for you to think about based on my own personal experience. Number one is dealing with the short-term, straightforward risk. And this, I would say, in 2016 for me, when I started learning about Bitcoin, it was through this national security lens of how are bad actors using crypto assets today. That was the main focus in 2016, 2017, because many policymakers did not know that much about crypto. It was arriving on the scene. It had been on the scene for a few years. But in that era, we were really focusing on, okay, how are bad actors using it? That's I would say, the straightforward issue. Policy issue that you have to grapple with. And then pretty soon, once you start looking at that risk, you realize, okay, here's another form of financial transfer mixed with other forms. Okay, we got to figure out how to stop bad actors from using it, and then also how to keep them. It's a cat and mouse game. They're trying to hide their tracks. We have to figure out how to go after them. Because of the blockchain, and I think Chris mentioned this, is transparent, there are tools. And this is when you sort of learn about, okay, blockchain analysis. So that's the sort of the first thing. But that's, I would say, the first bucket or the first dimension. How do you stop bad actors from using crypto? And in the US, at Treasury, in 2013, the US implemented anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism rules around the crypto industry since 2013. So those AML, CFT rules have been in place. Again, that's the first dimension and a critical, immediate dimension of the immediate risks. I would say later, 2018-ish to maybe 2021, I would say is it's complicated stage when looking at digital assets and crypto. Why? Because what I started seeing was what I would call, for lack of a better term, crypto rogues. And this is when we started thinking about the nation-state geopolitical elements. Why? North Korea started hacking crypto exchanges. You started to see, even with the terrorist financing that I was looking at earlier, more sophistication, right? Crypto obviously becoming more mainstream. That means that the criminals are going to get more sophisticated, more understanding of the tools. But then also there was a new thing which emerged, which was nation-state actors investing in and learning about the technology as a potential way, in their eyes, maybe to evade sanctions. And this is something that sort of is ongoing. But we started to see that Russia started investing in blockchain technology, research, thinking about its banking sector, which is highly sanctioned. We started to see Iran similarly investing in crypto technology, blockchain technology. Even some of you may remember Venezuela had this failed project that it said was going to create a crypto token in order to evade sanctions. So this is a different dimension. Right? This is now nation-state actors sort of thinking more longer term. It's not just about stealing crypto and money laundering crypto that still exists and still existed, but we started to see this emerge where it's a little bit more complicated. And then that leads to the third stage, because also around this time we started to see China, maybe with different position, but China also thinking about alternative financial rails. And this is when we get to central bank digital currencies. I would say the third dimension that I'm thinking a lot about is what's been maybe the past, since 2022 and to the present, what I would call winning the future. So this is a different dimension in thinking about digital assets. And what that is that now there's emerging a bit of a race of strategic competition, because all of this innovation that's happening, it's not just happening in the crypto space. Crypto innovates, and then you see central bankers see, oh, look at this technology. Maybe we could innovate. You see the private sector thinking about, oh, maybe we could merge different aspects of this technology. So you have this spectrum of different forms of digital money, all sort of, I don't know if you'd say competing or at least being available with, in the financial sector and tech sector. This is all happening. So we're in the middle of this, this transition period where where different actors are trying to win the future. And I'll end with what I'm seeing, and for you to think about as you think about your situations. China, which we mentioned and has been talked about a lot the past 2 days. So China has for almost a decade been researching blockchain technology and also been considering and is planning its own CBDC, central bank digital currency. China, this CBDC is not just about the currency. It's really part of a broader direction for China to digitize and intelligentize, and those are terms that the Chinese Communist Party uses, in its whole economy and its whole way of life. And so it's a very clear digital vision of having data being able to be accessed by the state, controlled by the state, financial data as well to be ingested. All of this might sound dystopian, but it's really pretty clear when you look at what the Chinese government is doing. We're seeing more sophistication in that, and China trying to get other countries to coordinate with ways of joining the CBDC experiment. So with this as the backdrop, it's interesting because you have two visions emerging. One is digital finance, which will be very much controlled, which could be used to potentially dispel, to squash dissension, to surveil the population for political terms with the government having control. That's this vision, which is in the Chinese government model. And then you have, I think, the ethos which the cryptocurrency space has had for its beginning, which is about decentralization, users sort of controlling, not being subject to the government. You have different visions. And I think now there's a question of, well, what is going to be, as finance is innovating, as finance is advancing, what will be the digital future for finance? Financial privacy is key to this, right? And so right now you have a discussion of, how do you preserve privacy, which has been a big issue in the crypto space because crypto is so public, people have created ways to anonymize behavior, to try to hide behavior, obscure, some of it for benign purposes, some of it for illicit activity. So now we're at a situation where me as a national security thinker, I'm thinking about, if China has this vision of a very much controlled, no privacy sort of digital world, then how can that be countered? What is going to be the alternative vision? Some of that, some of the guidance for that or some of the insights for how to do that may come from what we see happening in the crypto space. Because this crypto space, I'd say right now, is at a different stage. There's an understanding that if crypto is going to be around, it's going to have to deal with the issues of illicit risk and compliance with anti-money laundering rules. There's a need for privacy, but there's also a need to comply with regulations against terrorist financing, anti-money laundering, and sanctions evasion. So we're at this period right now where people are developing and building privacy with compliance. So I'll end by saying the question for the future is, what will be the digital model for finance in the future? Will it be the Chinese model? And then if it's not going to be, what countries, like-minded countries like ours, how can we develop the technology to preserve privacy while also complying and respecting with the laws for national security and anti-money laundering purposes? I know these are just seeds. There's a lot more for us to discuss, so I'll just leave you with that, and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.